Shivka ma'am to welcome our guest. Over to you, ma'am.
A very good afternoon to all of you. I bring warm greetings from Symbiosis School of Architecture, Urban Development and Planning and Symbiosis Skills and Professional University. Um, this is a great pleasure to have Sir on this webinar. This series of talks which I had planned, it's oriented towards journey of the contemporary master architects, from being a student to being a successful professional. The journey about their inspiration, their journey about through their aspirations, their failures and victories, their constraints, and how did they overcome those constraints, and all these things all of us would love to know, especially the students, the young generation and the budding architects would definitely are always curious about the journeys of all the famous architects. And it gives me immense pleasure to present to you architect Irani journey. So we are really looking forward to your journey, sir. And thank you very much for accepting my invitation on such a short notice and being here with all of us. And the students are really looking forward to listen to you. So over to you now, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Preeti, for the introduction, and thank you, Dr. Gauri, for having me here and organizing this session for the students. I know I'm kind of somewhere in the midway in my journey, and it's very different when I look back. This kind of gives me an opportunity of being with you all, gives me an opportunity to look back into the past and reflect and recall everything that has gone through in my architecture career so far. So I'm sure that of course this also happens to be a very interesting and a very new experience for me, looking into a screen and knowing that there are so many of you all part of this session, but I cannot see any one of you all in reality. So to begin with, I think a common question all of you must have asked yourself at this stage in your life is what made you choose to pursue the education in architecture. I think this is an interesting question for all of you to ask yourself, because it says a lot about who we are. And when I ask myself this question, I kind of go back to my childhood and I think of all the things that interested me. And I can definitely say one thing is that the regular academic was something that was of very little interest to me. What I really liked was drawing. I loved geometry. When I was doing math, I didn't like algebra because I could not remember any of those formulas. I loved geography because I could recall the shapes. I mean, you could basically, as a child, also ask me what the shape of draw the shape of Pune, and I would be able to draw Pune for you. I would be able to draw Maharashtra shape for you. I would be able to draw Indian map for you by memory, but I would not be able to do well in the geography exam because the kind of questions they would ask are very different from what a child like me was good at. I was also dyslexic, so that didn't help. I had a tough time uh, reading, uh, but I think all these challenges that were I faced in the academic area were kind of balanced out with my skills in drawing. So, of course, I didn't get I didn't pass the 10. I mean, in those days, I don't know what it is now in India, but in those days we had the 10th standard exam and the 12th standard exam, and I wasn't able to get like 90% out of 100. And the very first year, I did not even.
The connection is interrupted. It seems to be. We are not able to see or listen.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think his connection, there's some issue with it. Just check it.
Yeah.
I think there is some problem with his connection. He'll join back.
Yeah, I'm trying connecting again.
Yeah, yes. Students, please keep your mics on mute, otherwise it gives a lot of noise. Huh? So please keep your mics on mute. Meenal ma'am, has he logged out?
No, ma'am, I don't see him here. He
Yeah.
will try to join in again because I think so. He has some network issues.
Yeah, because I sent
I
him a
tried
message.
calling him. I tried calling him, but not responded.
I've sent him a message, but it has not reached him. So just he'll join back. Huh?
You have the number now? His
Yeah,
phone
yeah.
number?
I tried calling him, but the phone is not reaching. The ring is not reaching him. So
No, no, not the WhatsApp number. That is office number, 66.
no, that number I don't have.
I'll send you across. Just try contacting him. I have just sent across you the contact details.
Yes, yes.
Plus 6680 112 and the rest.
Yeah, yeah, I got it. I got
Yeah,
it.
yeah, dial it on.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Have any contact?
It's not going through. We are just trying.
Yeah, yeah. Sure.
Yeah, he just sent a message, lost connection, trying to reconnect. Minal, ma'am, just check it out.
Yes, yes.
Dear participants, please have patience. He has some connectivity issues and he'll be joining back. That's what he has mentioned on the message. So we'll wait for him. He's there. Welcome back, sir. You are on mute, sir. You have to unmute yourself, please. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about
Welcome
the
back.
technical problem. I think it was a technical problem at my end.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So I think the place where I left off was basically the first year I didn't even get admission into the architecture program, and it was after I did a year of chemical engineering, I was able to acquire admission in MNCA, and that was the first time that the School of Architecture has started. I was part of the very first batch in that school. If I have to recall and reflect on my experience, educational experience, then I would say that a lot I learned about architecture was from the practice, and less than what I expected from the subjects that were taught in school. And I don't mean to say this as presented as a complaint or anything, but just as certain facts that I've experienced. Through the 5 years, I was working at a architect's office in Pune. I used to go to school in the morning time and go to the office in the afternoon times. Somehow I managed to take care of all the submissions that were needed for the school work. This 5 years of experience was really helpful to me and very much meaningful, because through the practice I really understood where the knowledge was applied. It was very difficult to have this understanding through the textbooks that were part of the course. So I would say that basically through hands-on learning, I was able to gain the knowledge that I wanted to gain. I still recall my very first job on site when I joined this architecture office, a very small office in Pune camp. It no longer exists. But what they did was mainly custom homes. And my very first job for 2 months was just supervising 2 masons who were building a load-bearing walls for a bungalow. And you can imagine that could be a pretty boring job to do. But somehow at that time, it was not boring for me, because it helped me understand the importance of observation And observation is important, is a very important tool of education in pretty much whatever you do. And I sat there observing these masons lay one stone at a time. And my architect had told me that make sure that they have those keystones at regular intervals. And it was really important that the wall was done right, because it's not a facade stone wall, it's a load-bearing wall. So we had to make sure that the masonry wall was right. So the site experience really fascinated me. And after I finished my 5 years at the architecture school, I somehow ended up working for Hafiz's company. I didn't work in Bombay, but I was the project architect on site in Pune. And I was supervising construction of the Black Pyramids for the Osho ashram. Once again, it was a very stressful job for me, because I had never dealt with such a big a project of that magnitude, and I had never even dealt with having to make sure that 400 workers on site know what they are doing, and they are not stamping on each other's toes. So, as much as it was an architectural experience, a lot of it had to do with understanding just how human beings work together. Because at the end of the day, every project that is built involves a lot of human interaction and a lot of communication, a lot of efforts to make sure that miscommunications don't happen. It's not only from the professional point of view, but also from personal point of view. Because I still recall that one night when I had to go on site, and then I got to know that I think it was the masons who had started fighting with the electricians, and we had to make sure that those things are resolved and everyone is on the same page, and also make sure that the client does not get to know about what's all these small personal problems, and does not have any anxiety about how their project will get completed. So the reason I'm kind of reflecting on this is because these are things that are not taught, or I don't even know how they can be taught in school, but they're a very important part of an architect's life when you are in the profession. After I finished, I was on that site for about a year, and it was during that time that I happened to make a trip to Lonavala and saw this absolutely amazing home that was built in stone. And having supervised stone masonry, I knew that the kind of stonework that was done in this home was I could not understand who could have executed such beautiful work. And it was later on that I got to know that this work belonged to this Parsi gentleman who called himself the master mason and refused to call himself an architect, and he happened to be Nari Gandhi. So I tried to locate him. I got to meet him on one of his Lonavala sites. He was an amazing person. We never talked about architecture, but we only talked occasionally about the philosophy of life. And I recall asking him one question. I asked him, Nari, I've noticed that you're quite old and you're not married. Had you ever thought of getting married? And he said, well, earlier on in life, he had to make this choice. Either he's married to a wife or he's married to his architecture. And he could not choose both. So he decided to stay married to his architecture. it's still what he said kind of, I still reflect on it quite now and then, because I happen to choose to get married and I have 4 children. So it is really very difficult to, not difficult, but a big challenge. I can understand, what Nari was saying when he talked about you have a limited amount of time. You have to, if you give that attention to the family, you are limited to what you can give to the profession. Of course, I don't feel sorry about making my choice. I love my family and my children, but it's an interesting comparison to reflect on. It was before, of course, for me it was fascinating also to know that Nari was from Taliesin. I did have a lot of admiration for Wright since my school days. And when I say school days, I mean the School of Architecture. I got to know about Frank Lloyd Wright during my first year of architecture, because the first year's assignment was designing this outdoor display museum. And what I designed was a spiral that went up to a platform, and then a spiral that came back to ground level from the platform. And all along the spiral, there were stone pillars, and the art was displayed on the stone pillars. So as soon as the professor saw that, he said, "You have cheated." So what do you mean you have cheated? It was very difficult to draw a spiral to begin with, compared to a regular rectangle or a square design. But he said, "Yeah, you have cheated." So, and then he told me, what, this has been done by Frank Lloyd Wright, and you're just copying the Guggenheim. And at that time, I didn't even know who's Frank Lloyd Wright, and I didn't know what is the Guggenheim. But I went back to the library and I tried to find out who this guy is and what is this thing he has designed for which I'm being accused to have cheated. So I found this one book on Frank Lloyd Wright. I think it was called The Apprentice to the Genius. I don't recall the name, but it was written by Edgar Traffel. Edgar was an apprentice of Wright, who finally, I did get to meet Edgar when I went to the US. Briefly before he passed away. But yeah, that was my introduction to Frank Lloyd Wright, and the only book that I could refer to was this black and white book that was published by Edgar. And it wasn't till I actually ended up at Taliesin that was the first time in my life I saw Frank Lloyd Wright's work in color. Before that, the only reference I had was everything was black and white. But yeah, so I did apply to Taliesin, to the Frank Lloyd Wright School while I was working for Hafiz. I worked with Hafiz for a year, and then I even branched out and did a house for my own private client after I left his office. And after that, I moved on to Taliesin. I still recall my very last meeting with Nari Gandhi. It was just a few days before my flight. And he told me that everything you see at Taliesin is not fully done by Frank Lloyd Wright. What you will see now is a lot of things that are changes that have been made by his wife. And at that time, I didn't, of course, know much about Olga Wright and the fellowship, etc. But he said that, yeah, you should be able to recognize what the changes are. And he also told me that it's very unlikely that you will find any good architect at the foundation. I'm just reflecting on what he told me. So I said, that's fine. I think he was concerned whether after going there, whether what I learn about Wright was, what I'll observe about Wright would be really pure Wright or not. To me, it didn't really matter. for me, it was important just to go and live in those spaces that were designed by Wright. I went to Taliesin, and when I say Taliesin, I'm talking about Taliesin, which is in Wisconsin, not Taliesin West, which is in Arizona. So I first went to Taliesin, which is in Wisconsin. That's his summer home, and that's the original Taliesin that was built. 15 days after I reached Taliesin, the very first mail I got from India was news that Nari had passed away. And that was just, he met with an accident while going to one of his projects. Very sad for me to know, because I always thought that I'll get to understand, I'll go to Taliesin, I'll understand who Nari is, and I'll come back to India and maybe work alongside him. So at that point, I just continued being at Taliesin. The Taliesin life, the entire, it was just beautiful, wonderful being at, living in Frank Lloyd Wright's designed spaces. And Wisconsin is, Taliesin in Wisconsin is very different from Taliesin West in Arizona. And when we talk of organic architecture, it's sometimes difficult to understand what it means. People think that organic means that you have to have everything that's designed and built in stone and brick and mud and all those organic materials that we know of. But the reality is that organic is not limited to that. And when you see Wright's Taliesin in Wisconsin, it's so different from Wright's Taliesin West in Arizona. And both of them really reflect what the site has to offer. He didn't try to make his Taliesin in Arizona look like the one that was in Wisconsin. In fact, he even went ahead and used acrylic. It wasn't in the beginning that he used it, but at some point he did use acrylic even. So he was not against using modern material. When I say modern material, of course, it's modern that was in the 1940s and 50s. So I spent a few months in Wisconsin. Then we used to have this road trip where we used to do cross country and travel back to Arizona, to Arizona, spend the winters there, spend about 6 months. And as it became May, we would head back to Wisconsin. And this is something that the fellowship had been doing since they had established themselves and since they had built a place in Arizona. The reason why they ended up going to Arizona was for a project. So the very first 1 year when the fellowship went to Arizona for this project, they lived on 10 sites. And they worked on the project, went back to Wisconsin. The next year when they came back, there was no sign of the 10th site. They could hardly know where the site was because the natives had stolen all the canvas and the wood. So you can imagine how temporary those structures were. Slowly, Frank Lloyd Wright and the fellowship started building the studio, and then the kitchen and the dining and the theaters and the living quarters. And basically, it's just the process how it grew into being what it is today. So what I also got to know during my stay at Taliesin was architecture is not just bricks and stones and buildings that are just put together, but those buildings actually had a history, and they developed out of, there was always a reason why something was done the way it was done. And very often when there is a reason and then the design addresses that reason, something new is created. You're not copying or trying to imitate something that has already been done. So So yeah, I stayed at, I was at the foundation for almost 15 years. I think the longest that anyone has really been there in my generation. To reflect on what was my experience at the foundation, or at the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation. Basically, it was important that for Frank Lloyd Wright that when an apprentice came to spend his time at Taliesin, he had to make sure that they kind of everyone got rid of the way of thinking or the things that they had been taught prior to arriving at Taliesin. So the very first thing that we had to do was live in a tent in the desert. And it might sound simple or it might sound romantic, but it was neither of the two. I still recall like having lived in a city like like Pune and Mumbai, and there's hardly a moment where you don't hear some noise. And then when you go out into the Saronan desert, walking about 10 minutes, reaching your tent in the middle of nowhere, the only sound that you hear is your own breath. And that can really make one feel, have the sense of isolation and insecurity, because you just don't know what's creeping and crawling around you in the desert. But the thing is that Wright wanted you to have this experience, wanted us to have this experience, because he felt that you had to remove this thought of being enclosed in a box. And I had not really reflected on that earlier, but it's true. We are all our lives, we are really enclosed in spaces which are designed like boxes. So he called that the destruction of the box. So destruction of the box means just get rid of the box and put the apprentice into the desert in a canvas tent. So we were out there sleeping in the desert. I was stung by a scorpion. I survived. I didn't even go to a hospital. There was a retired doctor. I still recall that I was stung like at 3 o'clock in the morning. Luckily, I knew it was a scorpion sting because I had a solar light and I could see the scorpion crawl away. So I came to the kitchen at 3 o'clock. I was putting an ice pack on my hand, thinking what's going to happen to me, because a scorpion sting can be pretty dangerous.
Gustad sir, there's an interruption in your connection.
Can you hear me?
We are not able to hear you.
Yeah, we can hear actually.
Yes.
Yeah. What about everybody else? Can you hear? I think.
Yeah, ma'am, we can.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Okay. You can continue, sir.
Okay. I was sitting there for 3 hours thinking what's going to happen to me. And the first person who came in for breakfast at 6 o'clock was a retired doctor. He was a doctor who had joined the fellowship. He was a doctor to the Wrights. I think he must be in the 70s or 80s at that time. The first question, I told him I was stung by a scorpion. So the first question he asked me, "You're still alive, right?" I said, "Yes." So he said, "That's great. That means you're not allergic to a scorpion sting." So that's the way life was at Taliesin. People were really, people took things very casually. We had so many experiences with rattlesnakes. I still recall going back to my room after I finished my work in the studio, and then my colleague called me up and said, "You know what, just after you left, we found a 6-foot long rattlesnake where you were sitting." And I said, "Oh, thank God I was not there." And thank God I didn't step on that snake while I was there, because I was sitting there in my sandals working. So we had a lot of these kind of very unique experiences living in the desert. One thing I learned from another apprentice is also, do not design a shelter or do not make something that encloses the space. If you keep the space open, the animal will come in and leave. They don't want to stay with you unless you have food to offer them. They don't like you. In fact, they don't like you less than they are more scared of humans than humans are scared of them. So these are the kind of small things that we learned while living in nature. We became a lot aware of what is a full moon night and what is a moonless night. Got aware of where the sun rises from, where it sets, the beautiful sunsets, all these things that I'd never experienced spending my life in a city. And then I realized that basically we have designed our cities, and of course, maybe we don't have a choice, but situations and circumstances have forced us to live in such dense conditions that it's difficult for us to experience nature. How we solve that issue, I don't know. Maybe that's another dialogue. But these are the kind but this going to Taliesin really and living at Taliesin really helped me come close to nature. Now, this was a very important part of understanding organic architecture, because if organic architecture is supposed to encourage you to design with nature, taking into consideration the positives and appreciating the good points of what nature has to offer, then you have to understand and observe what nature has to offer. So having this experience was a very critical part of the learning process. During my stay at Taliesin, I was, of course, Frank Lloyd Wright also believed in learning by doing, which means whatever you want to learn, you have to do and gain experience, hands-on experience. Then you know what, then you are able to get the true knowledge. So, of course, part of the community life was you're supposed to work in the garden, you're supposed to, initially we used to grow our own vegetables and all that too in Wisconsin. I still recall the problems of digging for potatoes, because every time you dig a shovel in and you cut through a potato, you have just destroyed your dinner. So you have to learn how to, where to dig, where not to dig, how to grow the lettuce, how to grow things, how to design your menus so that you can make use of what you have grown in the vegetable garden. We were responsible for cleaning the entire premises by ourselves. There was when I joined, there was no help, so everything was done by the fellowship. And I remember once a week, every month, it was my turn to pick up the trash, and that's how I learned how to drive a truck. I didn't know how to drive, but I learned how to drive a truck because they needed to have a driver, and they could not. They just taught me how to drive the truck. I drove the truck. I picked up all the trash from all the sites on Taliesin. There was no. I feel that it was not just learning these trades, but it was also a way of understanding who we are and how it's important to do what is needed to be done. Frank Lloyd Wright himself took part in a lot of these activities while he was, physically able to. It just makes a person feel humble. If you are respected as if you're doing some great stuff in the studio, but at the same time, you're humble enough to go and pick up trash for everyone who's living in the fellowship, you know that you don't have any ego problems. And you know that you're not driven, your thinking process is not driven by a desire to have personal achievements. So we worked, we also cooked in the kitchen because Frank Lloyd Wright also believed that if you're going to design a kitchen, you have to know how to cook. If you're an architect who doesn't know how to cook, you have no right to design a kitchen. And that's true, because it's only after you cook, then you realize, hey, 1 second, if your pots and pans are on the wrong side, it's really, really difficult to reach them. And if you can burn yourself by if you put things in the wrong place, it can be extremely chaotic, or it can be a very romantic and pleasurable experience if everything is in the right place. So those are the subtleties of life at Taliesin. I worked in the studio. Oh yeah, I should go back, just stepping back. The first few months at Taliesin West, I was working in the wood shop, and I was helping a Japanese, I can't call him an architect, because actually he was an engineer, and he was a shipbuilder. He had graduated out of Tokyo University, one of the most prestigious places in Japan, and he had left everything, his desk job, and he had gone to work with the old, the traditional wood craftsmen of Japan to learn carpentry. And then he had come to Taliesin because he wanted to understand the Usonian way of building homes that Wright had started. So he was designing a Usonian shelter for in the desert. I helped him for 2 months. That's how I learned a lot about the carpentry. And although I had supervised so many carpenters on my project at the Osho Ashram, and even prior to that, I had never held a saw in my hand. And when I held a saw in my hand and I understood how difficult it is to cut straight, how difficult it is to run a piece of wood on a table saw, how important it is to be focused. That's the kind of practical experience I'm really so glad that I got during my stay at Taliesin, because I don't know how many schools are out there that really you can get into the details of these things. Of course, I was lucky that this Japanese engineer was there and I could learn from him. After that, I worked for a couple of months in the archive. In those days, all of Frank Lloyd Wright's drawings were in the archive, and one of my jobs was to laminate those drawings. So for 2 months, I was working with these original drawings of Frank Lloyd Wright, and seeing the original drawings on different projects, laminating them. That was a wonderful experience, because nowadays you can hardly see a pencil drawing, or I mean, everything is on computer. You don't get to see the things which are erased and the things which are changed, but you can see that and experience that in pencil drawings. I then went on to work in the studio, and I was fortunate right from the start. My very first project I worked on was the Monona Terrace Civic Center, Convention Center, and that's one of the biggest projects of Frank Lloyd Wright that was built after he passed away. And it was, I think the construction was started in 94 or 95. So working on these, again, I was very fortunate that right through my 15 years at Taliesin, I got to work on various unbuilt projects of Frank Lloyd Wright. Those projects really taught me a lot about how Wright thought and how he designed. And the one thing I learned through the process is also Wright made rules and Wright broke rules. It's very interesting. If he would say, if you read and if you really follow what he has to say, and then you see some of his, just to give you an example, of course, one of the things I did also at Taliesin was give tours, and I don't even recall how many tours I've given, but I used to take these to all the tourists, and I used to tell them about Taliesin, that how this Taliesin, Frank Lloyd Wright's house is designed round the brow of the hill. He didn't place the house on the top of the hill because it's so important to leave the top of the hill the way it is. And that was very important for Frank Lloyd Wright. And then when you go to Falling Water, I don't know how many, you all must be familiar with Falling Waters, right? It's the whole house is designed on top of the waterfall. And it just goes totally against everything he talked about in what he says in his for his own house at Wisconsin. So he was a genius. He looked at things. He saw what the site needed, and he addressed it based on what the needs were. I think that's a very important lesson I learned through the process. During my last 5 years at Taliesin, all the architects were asked to have their own firms within the mother organization. So we were all asked to have their own firms, and that's how I started Organic Design Workshop with my colleague who is Japanese, and we just started off getting into high-end custom homes. Each of those homes were very expensive homes. It took us about from designing, from the start to finish, it took us about 2 years to complete each home. And we would not be working on more than 1 or 2 homes every year. So it was very intense. During that time, I also, there was an in-house competition for, the foundation had a client called Kokio. Kokio is one of the largest firms in Japan that makes office furniture and stationery. Stationery is the main thing. So they wanted to, the foundation to propose design for a line of office furniture. And it had to be based on the principles of Frank Lloyd Wright. But it was very important that it was not Frank Lloyd Wright, because Frank Lloyd Wright furniture already has a copyright. So we had an in-house competition. They selected what I had designed. And literally, I had exactly 10 days to work out all the details in that furniture. Because in the daytime, I would do the design. I would send it to Japan. My nighttime in the US was daytime for the Japanese. They had a team of 10 to 12 people. They were working on the design. And then they would send back the comments and questions and suggestions. And that's how within 10 days, it was all put together. It's amazing. It was an amazing experience to work so efficiently. I think for a long time, yeah, the furniture, at least till I left Taliesin, the furniture was still being sold by the company. I started, we did a lot of custom homes, etc. While we, through Organic Design Workshop, at some point I was invited by JP Green to do a master plan on one of their projects in Noida. That was my first time I came to India for connected to a project. It was, we were selected, but I don't know what happened to the project. We never ended up doing it. And I kind of did off and on projects in India because my parents have to live there. And 10 years back, we moved to Thailand and to start this Montessori school. Now, why I started the Montessori school and what we are doing here is another story. But most of the architecture now I do is for the school. And that pretty much kind of sums up things. of what my journey has been so far. So it's still very strange for me to look into a computer screen and talk to so many. I'm open to having any questions.
But we did enjoy your journey, and I'm really, really sure that all the students must have got the message which you wanted to pass to them. So I would like Preeti to begin with a few of our questions which we thought we should pose to you. So Preeti,
Yes,
can you
ma'am.
please?
Thank you, sir. It was really like we're watching a journey in front of our eyes, right from the beginning of you taking up architecture to your adventures at Telsin and all your work you've done so far. So, few of our questions which I've also taken from our students regarding the project was, what are the challenges that you face during or designing an organic building?
Uh, I would say that the first thing that comes to my mind is time. Uh, Nani Gandhi used to take about 10 years finishing one project. And I don't think even after 10 years, some of those projects were complete. But that doesn't mean that we have the luxury of spending 10 years. But time is a very big factor. The reason why time is a big factor when you're designing something organic is you really have to take in all the uh, you have to observe what the project has to offer. And to begin with, you have to, of course, it might be a little difficult for you to imagine this because I've seen that the project sites in India, which at least the ones I worked on, they had very little to, in terms of observation, because they were just rectangular lots and you had to do you had to build a project within that rectangular lot. But the projects which I worked on in Scottsdale, the custom homes, or a lot of other projects of Frank Lloyd Wright also, they were on big pieces of land, and you had to see where you had the views, where the mountains were, what views you're getting, how the wind is blowing, how the sun direction is, what is the vegetation on the site. There was one project where we had to also study how the deer migrate during the migration time, and there was one project which finally we could not build anything on that site because it was a very sensitive place where only a certain type of butterflies used to populate, and those were the endangered species. So it was decided that no, you cannot touch the site. The government decided you can't do anything with it. So site observation so the time that's required to devote to the project is an important factor. After you collect all this data, also, there's also a lot of the project is also organic, I believe, when you're able to really understand the client's needs, and each client has its own needs. No two custom homes that we have designed. I cannot even imagine one of my clients living in the other guy's house. They would reject it. I recall designing a very it was a well-published home for a client. He was a lot of people liked that home. Had a lot of complex geometry in it. It kind of reflected to what that client wanted. He wanted something really cool. I don't know how else to put it. That was one of his requirements. While I was being interviewed by another client, I took him to that house. I took him to other homes. Finally, he selected us after a long process. For 2 months, he was interviewing architects, and he selected us. And the first thing he told me after he selected us was, everything that you like is something I would never want. That was interesting to know. So you'd wonder why did you select me then? He said, but I know after spending time with you that you will be able to give me the house I want. So that brings me to the second point, is that it's really getting the right client is so important for doing a good project. You have to have an intelligent client if you want your project to be, I would say, I know, for the lack of terms, I use the word organic, but I don't like to refer to it as a style or anything like that. It's Frank Lloyd Wright himself said that some of the most important projects that he has done are the ones which he could not have done if it wasn't for the client. And he felt that 50% of the project, the credit goes to the client. So to get the right type of client is important. I have the right type of client will also give you the right information that you need for making that project organic. Because part of the process of making a project organic also means that you have to cater that house as to that those spaces that you design, the materials that you choose, the decisions that you make, they have to cater to the lifestyle of this family that's going to live in it. So having to do all those things, and then another part is getting the right. In the US, we call them builders, but you would say a contractor. That's the builder. The right person to build a house is also very important. So to get the right person, that's also was a big challenge. The homes that we did in Scottsdale, I would say there might be just one or two companies that would be able to do those homes, because the kind of attention that has to be given to the details and the complexity of the design, they are the only ones who could handle it. And we always worked as a team with our builders. Right from the start of the project, I didn't start designing till I didn't introduce the builder to the client, the contractor, because it was important. The contractor gave us a lot of information on things that even I, as an architect, I didn't know, because they are the ones who actually use the material. I didn't have the luxury. I was sitting in front of a computer by then. So the contractor was guiding me. They would also guide us regarding costs, which are an important part of every project. If you design something that cannot be built, it will just sit on the paper and your client will go to another architect. It's just the reality of the profession. So yes, to do all this in a limited amount of time is the biggest challenge.
Thank you, sir. Any students would like to ask any questions?
Was there a question asked? I didn't hear it.
No, sir, I was asking one of our students to raise some questions for the same.
You can unmute yourselves and ask.
Ma'am, I want to ask something.
Yes, please.
Hello, sir. I am Preeti Seja, and I wanted to ask that I've seen a few designs of yours, the custom house. So, how do you start with the whole designing process? You said customers are really important, the client, they're really important, their ideologies are really important. So how do you connect the ideas of a client to the unbuilt spaces?
Well, I can reflect on my experience, and it might not be true in all the situations, but my experience was that when I designed homes for clients in the US, in the US, or in Japan. It was, they were able to communicate what they needed in a very good way. When I designed some projects in India and in Thailand, one of the biggest challenges I felt was I was not able to receive that information from the client. And that really makes it more difficult because you don't really know what the client wants. And then during the process of while the design is halfway through, then the client comes and tells you that, my cousin who visited the site and recently built a home, his architect did so and so for this project. And you think that, yes, this can be done, but this, when you're putting the program together, that's when you're supposed to work these things in. So one of the things that, programming was given importance. If programming is given importance and you spend, again, the good amount of your time figuring out what their needs are, then that defines what the schematic plan will be and the concept would be. And then you are working on a solid foundation to make progress and work on details. But if you're, so I would say that in all the custom homes, we had a very, very strong understanding of what we needed. And it wasn't just me as an architect, but also the client. And one of my jobs as an architect was to ask my client the right questions. One of my clients had told me, I don't know what I don't know. So it's your job to tell me what I don't know. So it's a big challenge. That same client, when I'd asked him, send me pictures of what you like, he sent me one picture of a door, a rustic door. And he said, this is what represents what I like. That's all. He didn't send me a picture of any house, nothing. So he was trying to communicate to me who he was. He was trying to tell me that I'm not the type of guy who likes a fabulous house that I want to show off in front of my neighbors. I want to be close to nature. I want to experience time, have a sense. What does that rustic door represent? Basically, it represents that something that has lived through time. It's not something that is just jazzy and new and glamorous. So basically, that's you have to develop the skills of understanding what your client's needs are. You have to understand how to address those needs, and you have to keep your own ego aside through this process. The house should not represent you. The house should represent your client and what he needs and what the requirements are of the site. And when it does that, then it represents a part of, I mean, that's what makes it organic. And so if you know, I'm sure you would have noticed that a lot of our homes don't look like they have come out of the same basket. They are quite different. I hope I answered your question.
So in short, the students, the architect has to get in the client's shoes to design the perfect home for him.
Yes.
Yes. I tell the students in other ways, like it's like Parakaya Pravesh, which is a term or a concept in India, that your soul into somebody else's soul, and then you try and understand their needs and what your client is actually, and then design for the client. So I think that's the same concept which you are talking about.
Yes, that's very important.
So, next question, please, if there is any.
Hello, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yes,
Hello,
Shreya.
sir.
Yes, so who's that?
Samriti here. I wanted to ask you, like, what are the few things that the architects and students should unlearn to work effectively in the changing world?
Well, I would say that there is there's a lot to unlearn, and it kind of see I'm kind of involved with the education of children. One of the reasons why, one of the things that I found fascinating, or I felt it was important to understand, is how the human being thinks. And I strongly believe that all of us are born in this world with a pretty much clean slate. But we become who we are based on what we experience through our childhood. And this last 10 years of my involvement in education has really brought to light the fact that how challenging it can be, our way of education is. In the sense, if you look at the way we gain knowledge, we are sending our children to, we are putting a lot of pressure on them since they are very young. They have to spend their time. We have to spend our time. I also went through the same childhood. Let me reflect on my own childhood, so it doesn't sound so critical. I had to of course, in those days I didn't go for classes, but now I see that small children who are like 6 years, 7 years, they are going to classes. The only thing that we focused on was giving tests and exams, and we had to score good grade because we had to get into the universities that we wanted to get into. And in this whole process of, first of all, I felt that I totally lost my childhood. The drawing part was, the fact that I was good at drawing meant nothing. I could not even enjoy my art because I was so busy studying things which I was not good at doing. I never the process in a way destroys our desire to learn. Now, when you have spent 10 years, let's see, 15 years, 16 years, 17 years of your life learning not to learn, then it becomes very difficult to get into, say, when you're into architecture and you're being told that, you really have to ask the question, why? Do not believe anything. If you want to know the nature of some material, you have to work with it, or you have to actually go on site. If you want to know if there's some cladding that is being put on a building, say that the magazines will say that, will show that this is a beautiful cladding, that's been put on this building, and that's the in thing, and that's really contemporary. Every second building in this, they'll make you believe that every second building should have this kind of look to it. But you should not believe that. Visit the same building, say 5 years later, and ask yourself, did it really work? You have to ask yourself this question in everything that you explore. Everyone I know, every project, almost every project in India seems to use Italian marble. And so you need to ask yourself that, is it really needed? Do you have better local stones? Does designing only have to happen through using expensive Italian marble? Can something else produce the same results? The way I like to start off my design is I like to if the very first plan I present to the client, it has all the furniture drawn in it, because I can't even design a room if I don't have the furniture, because I have to know where the bed is and where the closet is and how you're going to enter the room and how you're going to exit the room. And I know I've done projects in India where we only talk in square feet. And even as an architect, I'm totally lost. Sometimes it's just the right dimension that is needed. It doesn't have to be too bigger than what is needed for it to be right. I would say that there would be a lot of things to be unlearned by the time you reach, if you really want to do the right things in architecture. You cannot be a follower. You have to keep asking the questions, and you have to have that desire to seek knowledge, because you have to have that desire to seek knowledge because you want to know more. It's not because you want to just get the high grades and pass in your exams. So that part is important.
Thank you, sir. I think, Saniti, that would answer your question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes. Sakshi, you have a question? Sakshi or Pranjali?
Yes, hello sir, Pranjali here. I would like to know about the future scope of organic design. Like nowadays we see people, it is very less that organic design is being followed. There's only boxes we can see which are similar to each other. So what about the future scope?
Well, I think it's of course. I suppose you are reflecting on the situation in India, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. If you step back into Indian history, I would say that you'd be able to see organic architecture everywhere. Indian architecture is like a treasure that's covered with dust. It's like there's so much of good stuff over there. You can walk into old alleys and I mean, I grew up in the camp area. I still walk into those lanes and I admire the organic way in which those homes were built, and the kind of lights and shadows and all that stuff, and some. I mean, there are just so many interesting spaces. For me, it's nothing. It's as good as what you'd see in any old European country. But the problem is nothing is clean and nothing is maintained. So it all for us just appears as trash. I think a very important part is how you just have to maintain what you have. The new projects, I don't see how they can be organic, because the way they are, the urban designing is done, it sets a tone in which the projects have to follow. The kind of sites that are there, the kind of rules that are out there, the kind of rules that are out there, I would say unofficial rules. I don't know what to call it, but there's, it's just all about square footage and how much carpet area you can sell. I think in order to experience organic architecture, one would have to start off with better urban planning. You can't have much of congested planning. You can't have, buildings that are so close to each other. I understand that each site has got a green space, but sometimes these green spaces are almost not usable by the time you build a clubhouse and a pool, which nobody uses. So in terms of urban planning, there has to be more green spaces. Maybe the cities need to spread out a little bit. Maybe the rural areas of India need to be better developed. I've seen some of the development also happening in the outskirts of Pune, which is low rise. But then again, it's just the same homes. It's like you see a bunch of 50 homes that are they just look the same, and that's the kind of suburban construction that you'll see in the cities of even in the US. Everything looks the same, and the reason why nobody has not made an effort to make things look more appealing or organic is because no one wants to spend the time. Time is money. So it again kind of brings you back to time. Even when I work on my projects, sometimes, especially I've worked on projects in India, I pretty much have to spend a lot of my own time knowing that I'm not going to be compensated for any of it. It's a big challenge, yes. And I don't know how to answer your question, but it would require the will of the greater mass to make something more appealing happen than what is happening in the construction right now in India.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Sir, hello, this is Sakshi here. Sir, I had a question for you. If you had to change one thing about your clients, what would that be?
If I had to change one thing about what?
About your clients.
About my clients?
Yes.
Well, as I said earlier, the clients I had in the outside India have been very different. So I would say that one of the things that I used to do is that it wasn't just the client that selected us as the architect. It was also me who decided whether I wanted to have this person as a client. So it was two ways, and I've rejected a lot of projects, even in the US, because I knew that the client is just not going to be able to wants to have a Frank Lloyd Wright inspired project, but there's no way this person understands what it is or will end up allowing the project to happen. So after the one meeting, I have written to clients, I'm sorry, I don't think I'd be able to provide you with the service. The ones I selected and the ones who selected me, they've been wonderful. I can't even say, I can't, it's been a blessing. I've learned so much about architecture in the process from them. While giving them a house that they had hired me to do. Now, when I reflect on some of my other clients, I would hope that you see, in India, we don't really spend much time understanding culture. We always see success as monetary success. People who make money need not be the ones who understand what the beauty of life is. They just have the skills of making money. And I would wish that, yes, again, it kind of brings you back to the way you are educated in your childhood and the kind of experiences you've had. You You see, as long as the population is more interested in the sex and violence that you see in movies, you're going to miss out on the time that you can spend understanding art and culture. So it's always a give and take. So it depends on to kind of give you a comparison. Just a example. I visit Japan every year. Well, thanks to this COVID, I've not been able to this year. But what I really love about Japan is you see art and art everywhere. I mean, in everything they do, even the way in which they serve you food, you'll see them. There's art and culture. You go into anyone's home, and there will be a little flower decoration. I mean, how many? Yes, we in India we do have we have flowers for in our temples, but how many homes do you see with having art displayed or having an interest in classical music? All those things are very important. So I think in order to be able to address organic architecture, it's really the getting the right client is really important, and having a client who appreciates culture, art, philosophy. Philosophy is very important. Those things are a plus point. And yes, I wish that a lot of my clients, some of my clients I came across, they would have had better understanding of those finer aspects of life. That would have allowed me to give them a better project.
Well said, sir. Any more questions?
Good. Hello.
Yes, ma'am. There is a person called Swaru who would like to ask a question. Okay.
Good afternoon, sir. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. You can go ahead.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. I just wanted to know, while designing in an organic manner, the following the local municipality rules and services can be an issue. So, how you deal with it?
In my projects in India, I mean, when you say, yes, if you're designing say a high what do you call it, a condominium project, high density condominium project, of course you're restricted to how much you can make it organic. But if you're designing something that is less dense, then the local rules are not so much of an obstacle. Now you have to remember. Oh, I might get one minute, please. I just have to charge my battery because. Yeah, one minute. I just have to excuse myself and get the charge.
All right, sir.
Yeah, sorry. When I relocated, I forgot that I had not got my charger along. So, yeah, to get back to your question, there are the building codes that we had to deal with that I had to deal with in the US were a lot more thicker and fatter and demanding than the ones that I had to deal with in India. On our commercial buildings in Scottsdale, we were not even allowed to use more than I think 40% of glazing on the projects because you reflect light onto your neighbors. Even the colors were restricting. So code restrictions are everywhere. But I think the bigger challenge is what the client needs, and very often a lot of the projects, when the client is not the end user. Like I was fortunate to do custom homes in the US, so the client was the end user. But when I'm doing commercial projects, the client is not the end user. So they have a different perspective on how the project serves them, which will be quite different from what the end user would expect the project to serve. So it's a client that's a bigger the needs of the client become a bigger challenge to address. And I think well in India, of course, I think there's nothing against. Everyone wanted to. I remember when I left India for the US, everyone wanted to have a building that looked like Hafiz Contractors building. So it had nothing to do with codes. And later on, when I came back, when I started doing some projects, everyone wanted to have a building that looked like a building that came out of Singapore architects. And I never could figure out what that meant. But then finally I understood that it had to have a gray color and it had to have black windows. And then that would qualify to be what people want. So again, it goes back to how the masses think. If people think in an intelligent way, then there's more scope for exploring more options instead of making one's project look like what has been built or what the trend is.
Yes, thank you. So now the last question. So what would you look in a young architect or a student while you hire them?
It's always been very difficult for me to hire anyone because the way I work has been it's very demanding. But what I would look for I would say that the first the qualities I would look for is honesty. I don't mean honesty in terms of robbing things, but I mean honesty in terms of doing what's right in the profession and having a desire to learn even after project that I visit, after it's complete, I just feel sad when I see so many things that I could have done better if I had foreseen and given it a better thought. So that learning process can never end. I recall, I mean, in all the years I I've spent at Taliesin and worked on so many Frank Lloyd Wright projects, I still feel that there's so much. Every time I see something of Frank Lloyd Wright and I look at it, and it might be something I've seen maybe 10 times before, I still think I see something different. It's a different learning experience. And I recall I had, of course, I was very much involved with the education when I was at Taliesin. And I recall I was talking to one apprentice. She had just joined. It had been 6 months since she had joined the school. And, she was telling me, well, you know what, I already know everything about Frank Lloyd Wright. Now I need to move forward. It's amazingly arrogant way of looking at things. So humbleness would be the skills of observation, the desire to learn more, the desire to do the right thing, be humble, even if you produce the greatest masterpiece of architecture. Don't think of yourself as you are next to God or something. There's still a lot more for each one of us to learn. So those are the qualities that I would say I would look in the person.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Definitely. Thank you, sir. So I was about to ask you the last question from my side is, what would be your advice to these young budding architects? And you summed it up in the previous question itself, that whatever you said just now, that they have to be honest, they have to be humble, they have to keep learning. And that says it all. They have to really be a good human beings to become a good architect, and be humble even after becoming one. So I think if you want to add something to it and give a last piece of advice to all these young architects, it would be really great.
Oh, I always think that if you have chosen to become an architect, the easy path that you have chosen. So it's wonderful. I would not want to change my profession to anything else. Not want to be sitting and crunching numbers the whole day. I also want to be have a life where I can create new things. So find a way of making that possible, and find a way of not going off the path, because that can be those choices, those situations will come in your life where you have to make those choices, difficult choices. So yeah, just stay true to yourself, and make sure you know what your goals are in life.
Yes, that's true.
Well, thank you all. It's been a pleasure just walking through all these experiences that I've had. I've almost it's not been part of my life for a very long time. So reflecting on it has been an interesting journey for myself also. And it has inspired you in some ways.
Yes, definitely, sir. Definitely. And thank you so much for sharing your valuable experiences. Not only you, but you took us all down your memory lane, and we could actually visualize all those experiences
and I should say we could experience your experiences. So and I really liked a few of your quotes. Where the first one where you mentioned that. About your client who told me that don't tell me what I know. It's your job to tell me what I don't know. So I really like that, and the students should actually pick it up and try to understand their clients so well that they should be able to tell the clients what they don't know. And one more thing where you mentioned that the measure of success should be in terms of happiness and not, it shouldn't be monetary. And you also spoke about how important it is understanding art and culture and being learning lifelong, in the learning mode throughout your life. I think the entire dialogue, uh, during the entire dialogue, you've spilled the pearls of your wisdom, and I'm really, really thankful to you for sparing your valuable time in spite of being so busy and accepting my invitation at such a short notice. I would also like to thank Amol Dahivadkar, architect Amol Dahivadkar, for introducing me to you. And thank you so much, Amol, for letting me know such a wonderful personality. And I hope, sir, we'll be in touch and we'll get to learn a lot more from you and your experiences in future. And looking forward to you having on campus, because I would definitely like to share here that being a skills university, our philosophy is 70% experiential learning and 30% theory, where we are following this learning by doing very sincerely. All my students actually go to the construction yard and build things with their hands. They actually go and work in the carpentry lab. They work in our welding labs where they actually weld a truss. They actually cast foundation and bend the bars. And all my girls are also doing all these things in the school. And I would really like you to visit sometime and give us more inputs on how we can uh, do this in a better manner. So thank you so much for being here. And for all my participants, I would also like to tell you that the second talk in this series is going to be on next Monday with none other than architect Hafiz Contractor, who will be sharing his journey with us next Monday at 4 p.m. So I would like all of you to join back again in understanding the journeys of these great people and learning from their experiences. Thank you so much, sir, and it was great knowing you.
Well, thank you for having me here. And it's my pleasure.
Thanks a lot. See you soon. And take care, stay safe and take care.
Thank you. I'll sign off now.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir. Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.